Hi, I thought I would do a video on things to consider when you're designating a 340B contract pharmacy on the ESP portal. We've all seen and heard about the manufacturer restrictions on the 340B program. We've certainly felt their impact. A lot of people initially resisted submitting data to the ESP portal and designating a single contract pharmacy, but it seems like a lot of that resistance is fading and it's becoming more popular. So I thought it would be good to throw out some things of best practices, tips, and considerations when you are going to go to the ESP portal and designate a single contract pharmacy. So why should you designate a single contract pharmacy? Well, first of all, it eases the impact of the manufacturer restrictions. For the most part, and I'm painting in broad strokes here, when these manufacturers came out with the restrictions, unless you were in an exempt category, you lost all your 340B volume, and that had a major impact on you. It also, designating a single contract pharmacy, it will increase access to the expensive brand drugs for the uninsured patients. Most covered entities have a cash or indigent card program, and for the patients in that program, that's the only way they can afford those brand drugs. So while a third party patient may still be getting the drugs and you're just not getting any financial benefit out of those prescriptions, the uninsured patient is probably doing without those drugs altogether. And finally, it will improve the financial status of your program. Now, you're not going to get back all the volume and all of the financial benefit that you lost when the manufacturer restrictions came into place, because you're not going to get back all your pharmacies, but at least you can get back some of that volume by designating a single contract pharmacy. So those are some things to consider of why you should do this. Now let's talk about picking a specific pharmacy. First tip I have is volume is key, and I put this number one because this is probably the biggest consideration, and this is the one that's going to have the most weight. You want to look for a high volume of RXs from a specific manufacturer, and I recommend analyzing this for all pharmacies and for all manufacturers that have the restrictions. So don't just go through and say, this is my highest volume pharmacy, let's designate them as the single contract pharmacy for all manufacturers. Analyze it down to the manufacturer level, because you may find that one pharmacy has the highest volume of one manufacturer, while another pharmacy may have a higher volume in different manufacturers. So you're not necessarily going to pick the same pharmacy for every manufacturer. You also need to look at not just the volume, but whether they are 340B eligible prescriptions that are going to that pharmacy. So, for instance, if you have a pharmacy that has a high concentration of Medicaid prescriptions, which would not be eligible, versus another pharmacy that has a high concentration of third-party prescriptions that would be eligible, you need to consider that, and you really need to analyze this down to the level of each manufacturer and how many eligible prescriptions they would have by filtering out things like the Medicaid prescriptions. It can be a complex analysis, it requires a lot of detail, but it is worthwhile to make sure you pick the best pharmacy for your covered entity, since you only get to pick one. And again, that's for the most part, that's if you're not eligible for any of the exemptions. I'm kind of painting in broad strokes here when I talk about only being able to pick one, because that's how most of the manufacturer restrictions work. Um, Tip two is consider the contract terms. You may not have the same dispense fee on all of your 340B contracts. So if you're looking at pharmacies that have similar volume but have different financial terms, you need to consider that, and you need to consider the one that's going to work best for you. So somebody that has a little bit lower volume but also has a little bit lower dispense fee, it may be that financially that comes out better for you because of the lower dispense fee. You also need to consider other terms, such as what about your remediation terms? How much are you paying for remediation? And what are the payment terms if there's contracts with extended payment terms, or if you have contracts that are pay when replenished? Those are all things that need to be considered as well. So look at the contract terms before you decide on which pharmacy you're going to designate, especially if you've got pharmacies that are close in volume. So tip number 3 is consider the cash indigent card program, because not all contract pharmacies participate in this. And I highly recommend picking a contract pharmacy that does, because providing this affordable access to these high cost drugs through the 340B program is a major component of the 340B program. And especially if you're a hospital, not necessarily an FQHC so much, but a hospital, it is going to do a lot to help improve patient compliance. Non-compliance with prescription meds, that's one of the big reasons self-pay patients wind up in the ER. And a self-pay patient in the ER is not financially beneficial to you. You take care of them, but you usually don't get paid at all, or if you do, you get paid very little, so you wind up losing money on that. So if you can keep that patient compliant and that keeps them from coming into the ER, that's not just financially beneficial to you, that's practicing better medicine too. So I highly recommend picking a pharmacy that has a cash indigent card program, or if they don't have one, they would at least be willing to implement one as part of the agreement to be designated as your single contract pharmacy. Um, Tip number 4, you don't have to pick the same pharmacy for every manufacturer. You can pick a different pharmacy for each manufacturer if you've got that many pharmacies. But the contract pharmacies profit from these 340B prescriptions, and they profit more than they do if that prescription was a retail prescription, or third party, as some people call it. So it is a financial gain to them to participate in the 340B program, and by losing all this 340B volume, they're now making lower profits. So it is good for them if they can be your single contract pharmacy, because they make more money on that prescription than they would if it was third party. This may be something that you can look at as a strategic play. It may be worthwhile to a contract pharmacy to accept a lower dispense fee in exchange for being designated as your sole contract pharmacy. So you may be able to go to a pharmacy and say, look, you've got a high volume with this manufacturer. Would you accept a lower dispense fee if we named you as the sole contract pharmacy? To make it a stronger pitch and to make it more lucrative for the pharmacy, you can also go to them and say, what if we made you the sole contract pharmacy for all manufacturers? That squeezes out all of their competition. That gives them all of that 340B volume. And in that scenario, they might be willing to accept a lower dispense fee. So think about this as a strategic play. Is there a way that you can provide exclusivity to one contract pharmacy, and is that exclusivity worth something to them in terms of a lower dispense fee? Finally, I will say, don't be afraid to ask for help. 340B Max LLC is here to help with all of your 340B needs. Very familiar with the ESP portal and all the things that go into it, everything from registering on it to setting up templates, to designating contract pharmacies, to submitting data. So there is all my contact information, and I don't just do ESP portal. My tagline is everything I do puts more money on the bottom line of your 340B program. So my goal is to make your 340B programs more profitable. And you can visit the website there to learn more, or feel free to reach out to me via phone or email. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you found it beneficial. Feel free to list any questions in the comments to this video, or if there's another topic you'd like to see addressed in a video, put that in the comments as well. I'll respond if I can. Thank you for watching, and again, hope you found this beneficial.